Hi, it's Genevieve from the Red Fairy Project, and this is my second time filming this today because I just filmed the entire video and for some reason it didn't work. I find it a bit ironic that we're talking about quitting and then I have this technical problem that ugh. Anyways, these things happen. So we're talking about quitting and we're talking about how quitting can sometimes be a good thing and sometimes be not such a good thing. And I will start with an example that I actually touched on in another video from way back in the day, one of my first ones. And I actually talk about quitting slash procrastinating, and I talk about how it can actually be a good thing. And in the example that I give in that video, I will include the link below so you can go watch that. I mention an example of basically about, oh my goodness, this is probably 8 or 10 years ago, the first businesses that I tried to launch or was thinking of launching, and how I gave up on those businesses, on those ideas, and I felt really, really guilty about it. And it only became clear years later that basically why I quit those ideas or put them aside and moved on to something else is because they didn't really they didn't sit right with me. And I guess on a subconscious level, I realized that, you know, building a business requires a hell of a lot of effort. And I guess I wasn't passionate enough about those ideas, those business, to actually go through with them. So felt very guilty at the time for basically drawing up a business plan and taking all sorts of concrete actions and talking to people around me that I was going to start this business, and then basically dropping it like a few months later. So it was only with hindsight really that I realized that it just wasn't the right fit for me. So that's an example in which quitting can be it can be a good thing, and it can also be something that you start, that you do for a while. And I mean, this can be a hobby, it can be a job, it can be a business, it can be a relationship, and you realize after, I don't know, months or years that it's not the right fit once again for you anymore, because something that might be the right fit at a certain time in your life might not be after a while, whatever that period might be. And you have to be honest with yourself. You have to realize we're human beings, we evolve, life evolves, it changes into different circumstances, and sometimes, you know, something that suited us 2 years ago, it doesn't suit us today. And sometimes we can really insist, and I know I've done this sometimes, where I'm kind of like, oh no, I need to just, you know, get through this and continue this and all that, when in fact it's like, it's just not a good fit anymore and you need to move on to something else. So you have to be honest with yourself about that, and sometimes that can be a bit scary, and sometimes the answer that you find is not the easy answer, and it might mean making some difficult decisions, but in the end it's for the best probably. So, you know, think it through carefully, give yourself some time, but in the end you'll feel it when it's time to maybe quit or move on. So those are a few examples to me that is something positive. On the less positive side, I don't want to say necessarily negative, if you're a perfectionist, or if you tend to be quite demanding towards yourself, you'll see if this example is relatable to you. You might start something, and then if you're not good right away, you quit. So can you relate? I know that's been the case for me for several years, and I remember really in my adolescence trying different things. And I have maybe a silly example. I tried to water ski for the first time in my life when I was a teenager, and I wasn't good. Of course, you're just starting out. And after giving it 2 tries, I quit. So, which actually reminds me, I have another video all about learning to be a beginner, and this totally relates to that, so I'll include a link to that as well below. And I just basically didn't give myself the chance to just be a beginner and kind of suck at it. So I tried it twice and I was like, I'm not good, the hell with this. And obviously, in the grand scheme of things, not a huge deal, right? That I don't need to water ski, but at the same time, like, I'm sure, like, I've done that on multiple occasions with little things, and I do believe that in certain cases, the way you do one thing is the way you might do many things. So, okay, water skiing might not be a huge deal, but are there other aspects of my life where I've tended to do that, where I would, you know, start something, and if it didn't really, you know, work out right away, or was amazing right away, I would just quit it. And if I'm honest with myself, I have to say that I did have a tendency to do that sometimes, like in relationships, whether not even just romantic relationships, but friendships. Like as soon as it would get a bit rocky or there had to be a difficult conversation, I would tend to just like avoid that person maybe and kind of quit the relationship. So that's something that's a little more important, obviously. So sometimes quitting something might not have huge consequences, but sometimes it can. So it's really worth noticing if you have a pattern when it comes to that, to being a quitter. And it's not to say to judge yourself. This is not the point at all, but it's just to notice it if you do, and then to, you know, be honest with yourself on maybe the consequences of that. And if you find that maybe there have been some negative consequences, well, maybe how can you kind of readjust that behavior? So always be kind with yourself, and just kind of take a little bit of a step back and look if there's that kind of pattern and maybe how you can readjust, because there's certain things sometimes with hindsight that we might regret quitting, whether it's something small or something a little bit more important. So on that note, make sure to check out the 2 other videos that I'm referring to if you find this subject interesting and you think maybe there's a little bit something that you need to work on. And make sure you're signed up to the newsletter. I put out a newsletter every week, and I have a new video every week. And I send them out on the Sunday, so it's the perfect way to start your week feeling inspired. And let me know what you think, if this is a subject that's of interest, if there's any other subjects that you'd like me to cover. And yeah, so thank you for watching. Love you. Bye.